Good morning, dear students of grade 9. Welcome to our session. For you, it's exam session. At the beginning, let me introduce my colleagues in the studio. Ms. Ula Al-Mouai, English Language Supervisor, Tartus Directorate. Ms. Rula Bitar, Teacher of English, Lataka Directorate. Ms. Zuka Naif, Teacher of English, Lataka Directorate. And Ms. Sana Ismail, Teacher of English, Damascus Countryside Directorate, and me, Senior Supervisor and Coordinator of English Curriculum, Abdul Majid Ogharli. We hope you do well in your exams. We're here to help you. If you have any queries to ask us, we're willing to receive your phone calls, and we're going to talk about the grammar in your book, grade 9. We start with can you move the slide next, Ms. Samaher? Used to and would. Ms. Ula, as usual, you start the webinar.
Thank
please.
you. To start with used to and would, and this for this grammar, for this rule, some students get confused which one to choose. Well, to start with, about the meaning or the use of used to and would, it's almost the same as the meaning. The meaning, both, we use both to talk about a habit that was frequent in the past.
But not anymore.
But not anymore.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, about the difference between used to and would. To start with used to is used with state and active verbs.
Both.
So when we have state and active verb, we use used to and would. Both are correct. To talk about a habit that was frequent in the past. Let's give an example. I used to love kittens when I was a child, but no more. I used to swim in the river before we moved to Damascus. Okay, about would, with would we use only active verbs.
Active verbs.
When we have an active verb, we use would. When we don't have an active verb, we can use used to, but not would. When it's a state verb, we use used to. I hope it's clear now. With the same meaning, of course, as used to. Example, I would play football with my friends in the park when I was 5 years old. So, to make it clear, used to with active and state verbs, would only with active verbs. Okay, about the negative form.
Our advice to the students, if they are not sure which adverb to use.
Used to.
Used to.
It's always correct.
Yeah.
Okay. About the negative form of used to, we use didn't use to. Because
Didn't
in this
use
case,
because we use the infinitive, yes?
in this case, we
The
have
base
didn't, and did we use infinitive verb. So, didn't use to, the base form
Next.
goes with did.
Okay.
And of course, with would, it wouldn't.
We move to Ms. Rula Bitar, could and
Could
couldn't.
and couldn't. We use could and couldn't to talk about ability or general ability or possibility. For example, I could ride a horse, I can speak English, I could walk when I was 2. So we use it with general ability or possibility. But in a particular, on a particular occasion, we don't use could, we use was able to or were able to. We use was or were able to for ability in a particular situation. Example, the horse was running fast, but I was able to control it in the end.
Thank you. Just let me say something for the students so that they don't get confused. Actually, it is a slight difference between was able, were able to, and could. And we can use both of them most of the time with no difference. But since we have them in the book, we need to clarify it. Could is general ability. Able, was able to, or were able to, it is in a particular situation.
Yes.
Next, Ms. Samahar, please. We move to Ms. Zuka.
Okay.
Should, must, and have to.
Must is used with someone who has authority or power, like a father to his child, a teacher to his student, or a doctor to his patient. For example, a father to his son, you must be home before 10. Now, have to is used to tell someone's order or for a public law. For example, I have to be home before 10. You have to wear a uniform. Now we're going to move to should. Should is used to give advice. For example, you should go to bed early, or you shouldn't smoke.
Thank you so much. Next, Ms. Samahar. Ms. Sana, the floor is yours. Reported speech.
Okay. When we want to report what people say, we start with a reporting verb. and then the speaker's actual words. We make some changes. The first change is to the tense of the verb, and we make changes to the time and place references, and to the pronouns and possessive adjectives. We report someone saying, starting with he said.
The mic is not working,
Okay.
I think.
We report someone saying, starting with he said or he told someone. We go in the
So
reported.
the introductory for reported speech can be he or she said
Yes.
or told.
Also.
Told needs an object.
Yes.
We say told me, told Ahmed, told Huda, but said, it doesn't need
Actually,
to have
we
an
have
object.
many reporting verbs, such as said, ask, inquire,
Describe sometimes.
what he wants to know, and so on.
Yeah.
Yes, we go in the reported sentence one tense back.
Yes, one tense back.
Yes, this is called the back shifting technique. The present becomes past. For example, direct, I am hungry becomes he said he was hungry. We change the pronouns, as I told you before. I becomes he or she. The possessive adjectives.
Here, so that the students who are watching us don't say I doesn't take S. Here we mean the pronoun I
Yeah.
becomes he or
He
she.
or she, and her or his. My becomes her or his.
Or your.
Yes,
So everything near becomes,
becomes
far.
far.
Can we move next, Ms. Samaher?
Also, we have some time and place references. Now becomes then. Here becomes there. This becomes that. Today becomes that day. Tomorrow becomes the next day.
The
And
following
yesterday
day,
becomes
the
the
day
following.
after.
Yes, the day before.
And yesterday can be the day before or the previous day. Next, Ms. Samaher, Ms. Ula,
Okay,
too
now-
much, too many, too,
Two
more, and enough.
These are words, they're in their books, and they can be see them between brackets or missing words. Let's start to differentiate between them and their use. To start with, too much. First of all, too much and too many, the use of too in general, it means something negative. It's not positive. It's
Over
not
the limit.
Over the limits, more than okay.
More than okay.
So to
yes.
start with, too much, it indicates the uncountable nouns. Uncountable, too much, uncountable. Too many, countable nouns.
We use too much with uncountable nouns, too many with countable,
countable
nouns,
nouns.
to say that more than
More than okay. We don't need this much. Too with adjective, too crowded, for example, again to
It gives a
indicate
negative meaning.
negative way, to indicate a negative something. So about enough, we use enough after the adjective and before a noun.
Yeah,
so
the
it's not
position-
big enough, for example.
Yeah.
Big enough, big adjective is not big enough. So we don't have enough rooms, for example. This
And
is
we
enough.
use them in negative sentences.
In negative sentences. About more, we use more for another amount or quantity. We need more chairs, for example.
We need more chairs. We don't have enough chairs. Yes. Next, Ms. Samaher. Ms. Rula.
A, the, some, all, and many. First of all, we are going to talk about A and
A is the indefinite
the
article.
indefinite article A. We use a and an with singular countable indefinite nouns, of which there are more than one and mentioned for the first time.
Yes, let me just explain this.
Yes.
Countable nouns, because uncountable nouns, they don't
We
take
don't,
a or
use
an, of which there are more than one, because when we have only one,
We
it
use
is
the.
definite, we use the, and mentioned for the first time, because when you mention something a second time, it is
becomes
clear. Okay.
Okay. For example, I need a chair, and we use it with nouns that begins with a vowel. For example,
Give me an apple.
Yes. Now, the use of the definite article, we use a with a noun of which there is only one
Yeah.
of it in the universe or the country or the place.
Can we give examples? In the universe, the sun,
And
the moon,
The east,
The sky.
west,
yeah.
yes.
And in a country, the president, the prime
The
minister,
prime minister.
The teacher in
the
the
teacher in the
teacher in the
classroom, the
classroom.
board. If it is one door only, you say the door.
door.
So when there is one thing of it in a place or in the country or in the universe, we use the.
And we use it when a noun is mentioned a second time. For example,
Just
I
clear.
bought a house. The house is very big and beautiful.
Yes.
We mention it for the second time, it becomes definite.
Mhm.
When we add a phrase or a clause to a noun to make it clear.
Mhm. So when I say the girl in blue is a phrase added to the girl to make it
So
clear.
it becomes definite.
Or the man who answered the phone was my father or my teacher. So when we add a clause or a phrase to a noun, indefinite noun, to make it clear, yes?
Yes. With the musical instruments after the verb play, for example, I can play the guitar, she plays the piano.
Mm-hmm.
We use some with the plural nouns and uncountable nouns.
So here they have questions in the exam about some, any, and like these things. We need to tell them that some is used either with uncountable nouns
Uncountable.
or
And
plural.
plural.
Singular nouns usually take a or an
Of course.
in positive, negative, and questions.
So, for example, there are some students in the classroom. There is some sugar on the table, for example. We used with countable
Next,
and
Ms. Samaha.
uncountable nouns. We use all to mean every with countable and uncountable nouns. Example, all the houses in our street are old-fashioned. So it refers to all
Every
everything.
house.
Yes. Now, all transport on the island is provided by horses or, and carts.
So here, all transport is uncountable and takes is, singular verb, but all houses are, because it is
Because
countable.
It refers to countable nouns.
Many is used
We
with
use
plural
many with plural countable nouns.
and countable nouns.
Example, many people move to the cities from the countryside to work.
Yes. Next, Ms. Samaher. Can we mention much? Much
Much.
is used with uncountable
Uncountable.
nouns. And they may find the students in the exam a question and they need to choose between too much and too many. So they need to focus on the noun.
The countable
If
or
it is
uncountable.
countable,
Countable,
too
many.
many. Uncountable,
Too
too
much.
much. And sometimes the verb can help. If it is
For
a
is
plural verb,
Singular, it refers to much.
yes, and the
And the
plural
plural.
for too many.
Yes.
We come to tenses with Ms. Zuka,
Okay.
the present perfect
Present
tense.
perfect tense.
This is mentioned. We are going to talk about it now, and we're going to deal with it at the end of the grammar session, just to give a brief idea or a quick idea about all tenses.
Okay. The present perfect tense, affirmative form, it consists of subject, have and has, plus verb 3 and the complement. For example, I have just eaten lunch. She has almost finished cleaning the house. Now the question form, as
We
usual, we
invert,
invert the auxiliary with the subject, have or has plus subject plus verb 3 and the complement. For example, have you eaten lunch yet? Has he written a letter? Now the negative form, we add not to the auxiliary, have and has, and so we have the form subject, have and has, plus not, plus verb 3 and the complement. I haven't done my homework yet. She has never played tennis. Now notice, haven't is the contracted form of have not.
Yes.
Hasn't is has not.
Has not. Next, Ms. Samahar,
The use.
the use.
When an action happened in the past, but the exact time is not mentioned,
So we don't have time reference.
yes, and we talk about it now or we see the result now, we use the present perfect. For example, somebody has painted the door. In this case, we use already, just, or yet. For example, I have just eaten lunch. My father hasn't come yet, or has your father come yet? So we use yet in the negative and the question
Questions.
form. I have already written an email.
Yes. Next, Ms. Samahar.
Okay.
Now, difference now between Ms. Sana, difference between the present perfect and the past simple, and how can a student distinguish which one to use?
Okay.
The
The
per-
difference
yeah,
between
please.
the present perfect and the past simple is that the time in the simple past is none.
We have time reference.
Yeah. While in the present perfect, the time is not known, but both happened before now. For
Yes.
example,
Next, Ms. Samahar.
okay, may I give you an example?
Yes, you can. of
Yes,
course.
I played the guitar. yesterday. Here we have a time reference to
Yesterday.
Yesterday, yes. I've played the guitar. We don't have any time reference here in
Exactly.
this sentence.
So the student looks at the sentence. If he sees yesterday, ago, last,
Time.
plus time, we have time reference, it is simple past. If it is without time reference, the
Just happened before.
present perfect. We move to the past perfect with Miss Saula.
Okay.
again.
Now to start with the past perfect tense, we're going to have the forms of past perfect tense in the affirmative, question, and negative. The affirmative form starts with the subject, had, and past participle with the complement of the sentence. Example,
So had goes with all subjects.
all subjects, all pronouns. I had eaten breakfast before I went to school. So I went to school, but I had eaten breakfast before that.
And just to make it clear to the students, the past perfect is the same as the simple past.
Exactly.
But when we have two actions,
Something
we want
happened
to show
first.
which one happened first. We put it in the past perfect.
So
Yeah,
the one
please.
that happened first is the past perfect. The one that happened next is the past simple.
Yes.
In the question form, we start with had, with the auxiliary verb had. After that, the subject and past participle with the complement of the sentence. Example, the same question in the same sentence. Had he eaten breakfast before he went to school? In the negative form, because we have an auxiliary which is had in this case, we start with the subject, had. After that, we use not and past participle with the complement of the sentence. I hadn't eaten breakfast before I went to school.
Yes. Next, Ms. Samar. The use.
The use, we have talked about that. When we talk about two actions in the past with a period of time between them, the one that happened first is the past perfect, and the one that happened second is simple past tense. And here we need to pay attention. It doesn't have to be a tense or a verb. It can be a time. By 1999, for example, by the time I arrived. So,
Exactly.
example, I had eaten breakfast before I went to school.
Now here when we mentioned with a period of time between them, because when actions happened following one another,
In a series, this is
in
past
the
simple.
series, it is past simple for all tenses.
For all tenses.
Next, Ms. Samahir. Who and
Who
which,
and
Ms.
which.
Rula?
Who and which, usually we have in the exam question to choose between who and which or a missing word.
Yes.
So we use who and which as relative pronouns.
Mm-hmm.
Who with people, it refers to people. For example, Mr. Hamdan, who has got a lot of experience, is a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Here we, who indicates to Mr. Hamdan. It
refers to
refers-
Mr. Hamdan.
refers to Mr. Hamdan. Which with things, it refers to things. The museum, which is in the city center, is very interesting, which refers to the museum. Damascus, which is the capital city of Syria, has lovely traditional houses.
Damascus, which is, we have I missing, it's okay, we will add it later, has lovely traditional houses.
Yes. Samia's uncle and aunt, who are coming to visit us, live in the United Arab Emirates.
So in the exam, students need to look at this sentence. If it is about a human being, person,
use,
they
who.
choose who. If it is a thing, they
Which.
choose which. Next, Ms. Samahir, please. Ms. Zuka,
Okay.
the time phrases or the time clauses beginning with as soon as, when, until, and, before, and after.
We use these words with the simple present tense or simple past tense to form time clauses.
Time clauses.
Examples, Ahmed can't play computer games until he finishes his homework.
Here we have actions happening. One happens, then another one happens. Some action will not happen until another action happens, and so on. So it depends on the understanding of the meaning of the sentence and the usage of the word.
Okay. As soon as you arrive home, please call me.
As soon as you arrive, here the time is present, but the implication is future.
Future.
Yes.
Yeah,
When you finish your homework, you can go out.
yeah, and we can use this with until, saying you cannot go out until
Until
you
you
finish
finish your
homework.
homework. Before you go out, please turn the light off. After spending too much time playing computer games, Selma had a terrible headache.
We did too. Next, Ms. Samahir. Conditional sentences, type 2 with Ms. Sana. Floor is yours.
Okay. We use it to talk about something unreal in the present or future.
So what differentiates the first conditional and the second conditional, the first conditional is something real. Real, the time is now.
Possible, yeah.
But real, we say if plus simple present. Here, the situation is now,
Unreal.
but not real.
Impossible.
So we use the unreal past, if plus simple past.
Okay, if plus simple past. In the next side, we use
The
would.
result clause,
Yes,
we use
we use
would
would plus
plus
infinitive.
infinitive.
For example, if I had money, I would give you some.
In reality, I don't have money,
Yes, so
and I
can't-
will not give you.
I don't know. What would you do if you were rich? This is a question in the
Imaginary situation.
yeah. Not to be. We can use were with all pronouns. For example, if I were you, I would study hard.
And if he were, if she were.
Yeah.
But some think that were should be used always, not necessarily. We can say if he was, and we can say if he were. If I was, if I were. But we, you, they always were. We
Were.
cannot say if they was.
course.
But we can say were with all pronouns.
Yeah. We also use it to give an advice. For example, if I were you, I would tell the truth.
If I were you, I would tell the truth.
Or-
Yes.
or,
Next, Miss Samahar.
If it were me, we can see that in the book. If it were me, I would do
Yes.
something.
Yes. It is if I was in your position, or if I was in this position, I would do
I would.
something. Yeah. To give advice.
Okay, how can we give advice? We can use why don't you
Yeah. Why don't you?
or should.
Or should.
Okay, because we were talking about if I were you, we can use this as kind of advice. If I were you, I would. So to give examples, why don't you try doing exercises? Why don't you open the window to get fresh air? You should stop smoking. You shouldn't eat too much sugar.
Yeah. I just want to clarify something. Once someone said, when you give advice, you cannot say if I was you. But yes, we can say if I was you, but more commonly, we say if I were you.
Okay.
So should
So
is used.
it's the problem with was or were.
Yeah, was
Okay.
a word. You shouldn't eat too much sugar. This is uncountable. We use too much. The same
much,
grammar, we
exactly.
talked about it. Next, Miss Samar. We come to the passive voice.
To
We
the
start with Miss Rula.
We use the passive for when the object of a sentence.
The subject is not
subject.
clear. or
When
not
the
known.
object is more important than the subject, I mean.
Yes, yes.
It's more important, the focus is on the object rather than the subject. When the doer is not clear, we don't know who does the action. So
Next, Miss Samar.
first, the subject is not noun, the subject is not important, or the focus is on the object.
Now we move
Okay.
to Miss Zuka.
Okay, how to change into passive. First, the object becomes at the beginning of the sentence. Then, the main verb changes into past participle. Third, we use verb to be as follows. In
So
the
the
present,
difference is only in verb to be.
yes,
The object becomes at the beginning with all tenses. Verb 3 goes with all tenses, but between them, we change the verb to be. Yes.
yes. In the present simple, we use is and are. For example, he eats apples. It becomes in the passive, apples are eaten.
Because apples is a plural noun, it takes are, not is.
Okay. Now we have a note that when the subject is definite, we put it at the end of the sentence, preceded
by.
yes, with by.
With by.
For example, Sammy eats apples. It becomes apples are eaten by Sammy.
Yes.
In the past simple, we use was and were. For example, he ate apples. It becomes apples were eaten.
This is the past passive. Next, Miss Samaha, please. Miss Sana, continue.
Yes, we continue with how to change to the passive. In the present and the past continuous, we use being after the verb to be. For example, he's eating apples becomes apples are being eaten.
So we use being after the
After the
suitable
verb to
verb
be.
to be.
Yes, he was eating apples becomes apples were. Here we change the verb to be according to the
Tense.
yes, to the object. Apples were being eaten. In the present and past perfect, we use being after verb to be, verb to have, sorry. For example, he has eaten apples becomes apples have been eaten.
Again, here he takes has,
Yeah.
but apples takes have.
Yeah. He had eaten apples becomes apples had been eaten. Yes. But in the future tense, with the modals, we use be after the modal verb. For example, he will eat apples becomes apples will be eaten. He must eat apples becomes apples must be eaten.
Same thing goes with can. Next, Miss Samar, please. Miss Ola.
Okay. How can we make passive with can?
No, actually, we mentioned it, but since it is talked about in their book,
Okay, we
so
have to
we
mention.
clarify it again.
We use the infinitive form after can. So
Yeah,
can
of
be
course.
with past participle. Example, what can be reduced after a volcanic eruption? Can volcanic eruption be predicted? It's in the form of questions. sorry.
Yes, next. Question tags, Miss
Question tags.
Ola.
We use question tags to make sure something is correct.
So we have two cases. Either we're not sure, we want to make sure that something is correct, or we know
Or-
that it is correct and we
And
want to emphasize.
Something we are sure it's correct. How to make a question tag? First, we use the auxiliary verb if we have it in the sentence, or we use do, does, or did.
Yes.
Second, if the sentence is positive, the question tag is negative. And if the sentence is negative, then the question tag is positive. Three, we use the contracted form, the contracted form of
Of not. Yes, this is very important for the students because
And they-
we cannot say has not she, hasn't she. It is obligatory
And they-
to use the contracted form of not. Next.
And they use pronouns, not nouns.
Yes, not nouns, pronouns. Thank you. Yes, pronouns, not nouns. Examples?
Examples, you have got the map, haven't you? It's very hot, isn't it? We are not late, are we? You won't come, will you? She has written a letter, hasn't she? He isn't very smart, is he?
If I go back to the sentence, she's written a letter, actually sometimes this contraction of is, it can be has or is. How can a student know? From the verb.
Yes,
Not
verb.
ing.
If it is verb ing or an adjective or a noun, it is is. If it is verb 3,
Then
It's
like in
has.
this
Has.
sentence, it's has.
Has, yes.
It is has. Next, Ms. Samahir. Ms. Zuka, we move to reported speech with you.
Okay. We report someone saying, starting with he said or he told someone.
So told needs an object, he said doesn't need.
Okay. We go in the reported sentence one tense back. It means the present becomes past. For example, direct, I am hungry, it becomes he said he was hungry.
Some may say we mentioned it before.
Yeah.
It's no problem. When we repeat it, it will be fossilized in the brains of the
repeated in the
students.
book.
And it is
And they
repeated
make
in the book.
mistakes about it.
Okay. Now we change the pronoun. For example, pronoun I becomes he or she. Possessive pronouns, my becomes your becomes my or his or her, and so on.
Yes.
Everything near becomes far.
Yeah, we are repeating the slide. Next, Ms. Samahir.
Now becomes then, here becomes there, this becomes that, today becomes that day, tomorrow becomes the next day or the following day, yesterday it becomes the day before or the previous day.
Yes. So the difference here is the first time we mentioned it with Ms. Sana, and the second time is with Ms. Zuka, so we have difference.
It's fossilized.
Next, Ms. Samahir, we come to wish, Ms. Sana.
Yes, thank you. Wish. Wish is opposite the reality. It means we use wish to express a situation or to express a desire for a situation that doesn't exist now. In real sentence, if the real sentence is positive, the sentence with wish is negative or something different from the reality. The tense with wish goes one tense back, like the reported speech. The present becomes past and the past becomes past perfect, simple or continuous. For example, I'm late becomes I wish I wasn't or weren't late. Or I wish or I was.
Again, with wish, we
Or
can
where,
use
yeah,
where with
yes,
all
the same.
pronouns.
I forgot about the meeting becomes I wish I hadn't forgotten about the meeting.
Actually, for the grade 9, they don't have
Only past
only
simple.
past simple.
Yeah.
But since you are explaining which,
They had it before actually, but that was
now they
deleted.
don't have it anymore. So they used to have it.
used to have it.
But not anymore. Yes. Next, Ms. Samaher.
Tenses.
We come to tenses. We start again with Ms.
Okay, and
Ula.
this is the first grammar they have in their book, past and present. To start
And
with
they
the present.
will always meet
They
the
will
simple
always have
present
it,
tense.
of course. And when they master that tenses, the past and simple tenses, they're going to be able to move to the other tenses. To start with simple present tense, with the affirmative form, we start with the subject. After that, the verb in the base form. It means we use S with he, she, it.
Actually, Ms. Samaher, now it is animated, so we need to go more than one time next, because it is animated. Next, we'll see a line. Then we do next again and again like this. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to start with the subject, after that the verb in the base form adding S or not based on the subject. If he, she, it, we add S. They, we, you, I, we don't add S. And the complement of the sentence. Example, I speak English. He speaks English. I have a car, she has a car. Of course, this has a car is not present perfect. This
Yes.
is present simple because we don't have past participle.
Here it is a main verb.
It's a main verb. Notably, we add es to the verb instead of s when they finish with one of these letters, s, double s, sh, sh, or ch, x, z, and o. Example, I finish. He finishes.
Finishes.
I go. She goes.
You watch.
You watch.
She
She
watches.
watches. We fix. He fixes.
Next,
So we
now
add
again.
es.
Yeah.
In the question form, we invert.
Let's give the floor to
Okay,
Ms.
why not?
Rola so that you take a rest.
Okay. Question form, we use first do or does plus the subject and the infinitive of the verb and the complement with the question mark. Example, do you speak English? Do you have a car? Does he speak English? Does she have a car? Here we use have because
has.
we need the infinitive of the verb. Notably, have not.
Have, not has, is
Have
used.
not has is used because we use the infinitive form of the verb after auxiliaries, not verb
verb
one.
Thank you. Next, and Ms. Zuka,
Okay.
negative form.
Negative form, we use not with do and does. For example, I don't or do not speak English. طبعا, after that, we use the infinitive form of the verb. He doesn't or does not have a car.
Yes. Next, Ms. Samar. We come to the use. Ms. Sana.
Yes. We use the simple present with
The main use, actually, for of the simple present tense is about habits or routines.
Yes. We mean by that habitual actions. Here we use adverbs of frequency such as always, usually,
And
sometimes.
I want to focus on the name.
Yeah.
Because when you ask a student, do you know adverbs of frequency, they say no. But when you say always, they say, yes, we know them. So
Yes.
they know them.
They've
They
had
They
it.
don't know
what the
that they
names
are
are.
called
The name.
frequency
We have
adverbs
many.
or adverbs of frequency.
Always, usually, sometimes, often, never, seldom, generally, rarely, once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, frequently, every day, every week, and so on.
So all these refer to a frequent or a repeated action.
Actions.
Habits.
Habit, yes. Example?
For example, it often rains in winter. I go
Really?
to school every day. She sometimes plays tennis.
Tennis. The position of the frequency adverbs, usually it is after the
After.
subject, before the
And before
verb.
the verb.
We have sometimes and usually they are movable. They can be like the others and they can come at the beginning or at the end for sometimes and usually. Every day, always, it in the end of the sentence. Sometimes we can put it at the beginning. Next, Ms. Samahir. Second and third use with Ms. Ula.
After the habitual activities or actions, we move to the facts.
Yes.
With facts, we use the
Facts
present
are
simple.
always true.
Are always true. The earth goes round the sun. We
This is
eat to
always.
live. These are facts, so we use present simple. With the state verbs, involuntary verbs, I see a bird, she hears my voice. So verbs that they are not used in the continuous form.
Yeah,
Like
because
love, hate,
They are
want.
not action verbs.
They are not action
state.
verbs.
We don't do any effort. We don't make any effort to
Exactly.
achieve them.
So we can't use them with the ing form.
Next, Ms. Samahir. present continuous tense.
The first form is the affirmative form. We use subject, the verb to be, am, is, or are, plus the verb with ing and the complement. Example, I'm playing football, she's reading a book, we are studying. The question form, we use first the verb to be, am, is, are, plus the subject, the verb with ing and the complement with the question mark. Example, am I speaking quickly? Is he playing football? Are you studying? The second form is a negative form. Subject, is not, are not, and am not. The verb with ing and the complement. Example, I'm not working now. She isn't cooking at the moment. They aren't studying. Notably,
Yes.
I'm not.
Next, Ms. Samahir, please. I'm not. The only way we can contract I am not is I'm not.
I'm not.
We
But
cannot
we
say-
can't write or say
I
I
am
am
not. He isn't. He's not. It becomes he isn't. Not he is not.
We can say he is not actually, can be either he isn't
isn't.
or he's not. Two ways.
Yes.
We are not can be we aren't or we are
We
not.
aren't.
Next, again, Ms. Samahir. The use, Ms. Zuka.
Okay. We use the present continuous to express that the action is happening now.
This is the main use of
Yes.
the present continuous.
We
to show
have
that the action,
time reference now, right now, at the moment, at present, today, tonight, this week, this month, this year, and so on. For example, I'm watching a film now. We use the present continuous also to express an incomplete action. For example, she's writing a book.
Yeah, she hasn't finished.
She hasn't finished yet. Instead of the future tense, when we talk about arrangements for personal plans, we use the present continuous. We are arriving or we are visiting my aunt next week.
With temporary action.
With temporary actions, for example, I'm living in London now, but I'm Syrian, I'm a student here.
Yes. Next. Simple past tense, Miss Sana.
Okay. We form the simple past tense in the affirmative form like the following. Subject plus verb to. For example, I went to school yesterday. She played volleyball last Monday. In the question form, we use did at the beginning of the sentence, then the subject. For example, did you play football last Monday? And here we use verb 1 after did.
Verb 1 or verb 0?
Yes, verb 0.
Verb 0.
Did she see the film before? Okay. In the negative form, we use subject plus did plus not, plus the infinitive.
infinitive
Yes.
plus
For
continuous.
example, I didn't or did not play tennis yesterday. He didn't go to the cinema with me.
Yes. Next, Miss Samahir. The use.
The
Miss
use-
Ula.
Yes, now the use of simple past tense. We start with things that happened and ended in the past.
So the main
Exam-
use is something happened,
Happened
and finished.
and finished. And we need to have time reference.
Yes.
For example, we saw that film a week ago. We used kind of adverbs like yesterday, last week, last Saturday morning, last Tuesday evening ago, 2 weeks ago, last year, etc. Okay, the second use is to express a habit that was frequent in the past.
I just want to say something. Maybe
Please.
it's higher level than grade 9. For morning, night can be preceded with last. Morning and evening, we cannot say last morning or last evening. We say yesterday morning and yesterday evening. Yes, continue, please.
Okay, the second one is to express a habit that was frequent in the past, like I swam in the river, every day last summer. And we've said something about that using adverbs of frequency. We can use them in the simple past, like every day or
So not
usually. Or
necessarily when a teacher says when you see every day, choose the simple
doesn't
present.
have to be-
It is not necessarily true because here we used it in the simple past tense, but
Exactly.
the action is past because we have
we
last.
have last summer.
summer.
So they have to pay attention, not because we have every day it's present simple,
Yeah, so
because we
the
have last
keywords-
summer.
The keywords are important,
Of
but
course.
we need to be careful to check the tense or the
Exactly.
everything in the sentence.
The meaning is the most important.
Mm-hmm.
The last use is with unreal past, like with which and if. For example, she speaks as if she was an adult.
Here it is if clause.
If
and
clause.
followed with unreal past. If
Exactly.
she was an adult. And with wish, as they have.
And with wish, I wish
conditional
I knew
type
the
verb,
answer.
and
We
they
use
have
simple
wish.
past. And with the second conditional sentences, like the ones we had before, if I was or were rich, I would buy a big house.
Yes, next, Mr.
So
Maher.
4 uses.
Past continuous
continuous
tense,
tense.
Miss Rula.
The affirmative form is the subject, was or were, the verb with ing and the complement. Example, I was having dinner when you found. The boys were playing football when the bell rang. The question form, we use was and were, or was or were first, then the subject, then the verb with ing and the complement with a question mark. Example, were you studying? Was he watching a film? The negative form, subject, wasn't or weren't, the verb with ing and the complement. Example, I wasn't playing, they weren't studying.
Yes, next, Mr. Maher.
They use.
The use with Miss Zuka.
Okay. We use the past continuous to express or to show that the action was in progress in the past.
Yeah.
For example, we were studying all day yesterday.
And we usually say to the students, when we have all plus time, it is a long action.
Yes. To talk about two actions in the past, the first was in progress and was interrupted by another action. We put the first in the past continuous tense and the one which interrupted it in the past simple. Okay,
Like the
for example, I was having dinner when the phone rang, for
Yes.
example.
3.
Okay, to show that the action was incomplete in the past.
And we always say when the action is incomplete, it is in the continuous, present, past, or future. Next, present perfect tense, Miss Sana.
Yes. To form the present perfect tense in the affirmative form, we use subject plus have or has plus verb 3. For example, I've just eaten lunch. She has almost finished cleaning the house. We use has with she, he, or it, and the last with have. In the question form, we use have or has at the beginning of the sentence plus the subject plus verb 3. For example, have you eaten lunch? Has he written a letter? In the negative form, we use subject plus have or has plus not plus verb 3. For example, I haven't done my homework. She has never played tennis. Here we use never to
Next,
negate the
Ms. Samar.
sentence. Nota B. Haven't means have not. Hasn't means has not. And here we don't have to make any change on the verb after have or has.
Yeah, next. The use, Miss Saula.
Okay, as we've said earlier, when an action happened in the past and the exact time is not mentioned, and we have the result now, we talk about it now or we see the result, we use the present perfect. So it happened in the past, but we don't have specific time, and we have result in the present. Example, somebody has painted the door. So the door now is painted.
The result
and
is clear.
The result is clear, and we don't know the exact time of the painting. In this case, we use words like already, almost, just,
So
yet.
these are keywords.
Keywords to
with
be
the
used with the present perfect. I have just eaten lunch. She has almost finished cleaning the house. My father hasn't come yet. Has your father come yet? This is a question. And has your father come yet? Without yet, sorry. Has your father come is normally question. But when we use the negative in the question form, it's to express surprise.
Yes.
Like, sorry, hasn't your father come yet? This is surprise.
Yes.
So we usually use negative questions to express surprise. I have already written an email. This is about already.
Yeah. Miss Maher next. Again.
The second one,
Second one, Miss Rula.
yes. When the action started in the past and has continued without stop until the present and may continue in the future. In this case, we use since with a point in time and for with the duration of time. Example, I have played the piano since I was 10. She has driven her car for 3 years. 3, when something has never happened before. Example, she has never seen snow. We use never.
Never.
4, when one action has happened many times until the present. Example, we have had 4 tests so far. We use in this case so far, until now, up to now.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Maher. Miss Zuka, tell us about the difference. No, yeah.
Okay. The difference when we use go in the third form with the present perfect, we use been to indicate that someone has gone and
And
returned. But we use the form gone in the third form of go to say that someone is still there. He hasn't arrived yet or come back.
Yeah, thank you. Next, Miss Samar, present perfect continuous.
Present perfect continuous.
Miss Sana.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. To form the present perfect continuous in the affirmative form, we start with subject plus have or has and been plus verb ing. For example, I have been waiting for an hour. Another example, he has been teaching since 1999. In the question form, we use have or has at the beginning plus the subject plus been plus verb ing. For example, have you been teaching since 1999? How long has she been teaching? This is question. But in the negative form, we start with subject another time plus have or has plus not plus been plus ing, verb ing. I haven't been teaching. He hasn't been waiting.
Yeah,
It's very
next,
easy.
Miss Samar. The use, Miss Ula.
The use of present perfect continuous. We've said that the present perfect talks about an action that started in the past, and we have result. Now with the continuous, it's almost the same, but it is continuous. So it started in the past, has continued to the present, and may continue to the future. We can use, of course, since and for with both cases,
Yeah, and
present
we
perfect
always
simple
say
and present perfect
yes,
continuous.
yes.
For example, I have been waiting for an hour. He has been teaching since 1999. So some students make mistakes and think that for is only used with the continuous and since is only used with the simple. So no, both of them are used with the simple and continuous. The second way or the second use is to talk about a past activity that has a present result.
Yes.
For example, he is tired because he has been running. So he must have run for a long time, so he's tired today. So it
We
needs
have a
to be
result for a long action.
for a long
before.
action. Her hair is wet because she has been swimming. We use the adverbs like lately, recently, all day, all morning, all week, etc. with the tense. As you've mentioned before, we use all with time to indicate that an action that has taken time, a long time, and should be in the continuous tense, whatever the tense is,
Yes.
should be in the continuous.
Next, Miss Samar. Past perfect
perfect
tense, Miss Rula.
Past perfect tense, the affirmative form, subject, had, verb 3 or past participle and the complement of the sentence. For example, yesterday morning, first I had my breakfast. After that, I went to school. We say it like that. Example, I had eaten breakfast before I went to school.
I had eaten breakfast before I went to school. Yeah.
The question form, we invert the subject with had first, plus subject, plus past participle, and the complement with the question mark. Example, had he eaten breakfast before he went to school? The negative form, we use subject, had, not, and verb 3 or past participle with the complement. Example, I hadn't eaten breakfast before I went to school.
Next, Miss Samar. Miss Zuka.
Okay, the use of the past perfect tense. When we talk about two actions in the past with a period of time between them, we put that happened first in the past perfect tense and that happened second in simple past tense. For example, I had eaten breakfast before I went to school. Notably,
Notably,
when we have succession, two or more actions following
We
one
mean by
another.
succession, actions following one another.
Yes, in a sequence.
Yes.
We put them all in the simple past tense. When we talk about an action happened before a specific past time, for example, before sunrise, the doctor had performed the operation.
Or by the time, or by 1999. When we have by plus time, we use the past
Until,
perfect.
we use until also. When an action never happened before a specific past time. Before she went to Lebanon last February.
Will you? Next, Mr. Maher.
Okay. When an action never happened before a specific past time. For example, before she went to Lebanon last February, Suha had never seen snow. With third conditional sentences, but
They don't have it.
Yes, they don't have it, but
Nine.
okay, we'll talk about it. If I had known the answer, I would have told you.
Yes, next. Miss Samahir. Future tense, and this is a bit ambiguous, and we want to clarify it clearly again and again and again. If someone says you have talked about it earlier, we need to make it clear to the students.
More than once, yes.
Yes, we start with Miss Sana.
Okay. In the affirmative form, subject plus shall or will plus infinitive.
Actually, shall goes only with I and we.
Okay.
I and we, they take shall. Nowadays, will is used with all pronouns in the positive, but in the questions and offers, we use shall with I and we.
Yeah. For example, I shall or will go to school. We will go to school. She will go to school. They will go to school. We shall or will go to school. He will go to school. It will eat the bird. This is for animals.
Next, the question form.
Okay, in the question form, we use shall or will plus subject plus infinitive. For example, shall I go to school? Shall we go to school? Will you go to school? Will he go to school?
And actually, in question tags,
Will she
if
go
the
to school?
sentence starts with let's plus
Shall we?
there, we say shall we.
Shall. Well, will they go to school? Will it eat the bird?
Thank you. Next, and Miss Ola, continue.
With the
please.
negative form, we start with the subject. After that, we use shan't or won't. And the infinitive form with the complement of the sentence. For example, I shan't go to school. I won't go to school, or I will not, but we prefer to have it like this. I won't go to school. We shan't go to school. We won't go to school. He won't go to school, etc. With the same form.
We come to be going to. Miss
The,
Rula.
the affirmative form is subject, be going to, and the infinitive and the complement of the sentence. Example, I'm going to be a doctor. You are going to be a doctor. He's going to be a doctor. She's going to be a doctor. We are going to be doctors. They are going to be doctors.
Everyone's
The question form is be subject, be a subject, and going to the infinitive and the complement with the question mark. Example, am I going to be a doctor? Are you going to be a doctor? Is he going to be a doctor? Is she going to be a doctor? Are we going to be doctors? Are they going to be doctors? Is it going to eat the bear?
Poor bird. Next, Miss Samahir.
The negative form, subject be not, going to the infinitive and the complement. Example, I'm not going to be a doctor. You are not going to be a doctor. He's not going to be a doctor. She's not going to be a doctor.
And no one
We
is
are-
going to.
No one.
We are
wants
not
to be.
going to be doctors. They are not going to be doctors.
And
It's not.
It is not going
It's
to
not
be
going to
the
eat the bird.
Thank God.
Like,
The contraction.
the contraction is I am not. I'm not to. It becomes I'm not. He is not to. He isn't.
Or he is
Or
not.
he is not.
We
We
are
are not to. We are not, and we aren't.
Thank you. Next, Miss Samahir, Miss Zuka,
Okay,
tell us about
The
will
use.
versus
be going to. The use of will, for example, to express intention.
Actually, we use both. Will and be going to express intention and to express prediction.
Yes.
For intention at the beginning,
If the decision was taken before the moment of speaking, planned one, we use be going to. For example, I bought some tomatoes and cucumber, so I'm going to make a salad. But if the decision is taken at the moment of speaking, no plan, use will. For example, the phone is ringing, I'll answer it.
Next, Miss Samahir. Miss
For
Sana.
prediction, yes.
Yes, for prediction, if you predict the future because there are some signs for it, we mean by that you see something which make you predict.
Which makes you predict.
Yes, makes you predict. We use, in this case, be going to. For example, look at the clouds or look at those dark clouds, it's going to rain. Now, but if you predict the future because you think something will happen, we use will. For
Will
example,
happen, use will.
yeah, I think in the future there will be houses on the moon. Here we don't have any sign.
We're not sure.
Yeah.
Next, Miss Samahir. Miss
Okay.
Saula,
Now, if you want to ask or give an offer, we use will. Like, I'll help you with these bags. Will you help me open this door, please? To give or to ask for or give information, again, we use will. What time will the play start? It will start in a few minutes. To give a promise, if you want to give someone a promise, we use will. I'll give you your money back tomorrow. To express a strong will to do something will. The homework is difficult, but I will do it.
I think we finished the tenses. Ms. Samaher, can you start the exam papers for us? Until that time, until they are ready, the exam paper, I will re-summarize the difference between will and going to. We use will and going to for both intention and prediction. For prediction, if we see something that helps us predict the future, we use going to. If we think something may happen, we use will. We come for intention to do something. If the decision is made at the time of speaking, we use will. If we talk about something decided before, which is planned, we use going to. Now, dear students, we can see a picture of an exam paper. We're going to talk about it so that when you are in the exam, you can see what you're going to see in the exam. Actually, in the exam, you may for the first time see something called the exam book. The exam book is more than one paper. We have places to write and places just to practice something if you are afraid of making mistakes. So you write on the paper where there are numbers. So the exam book is numbered 1, 2, 3. The student doesn't need to write the question. He can write immediately the answer next to the corresponding letter. If someone of the students makes a mistake, he can delete it and write it in another place, but he needs to write the number.
The exact number, they have to pay attention.
Correct answer. We start with Miss Ula.
Okay.
At the beginning, what do we have?
The first page, we have two texts. One from the student's book and one from the activity book. The first one, read the following text, then do the tasks below. In the first paragraph, we have a text, in the first text, we have two underlined words and the questions below.
Three underlined. We need to answer
two out of three. Choose the right answer, A, B, or C, to complete the following. So we have three sentences that they need to choose the correct answer for. Do we need to write them or just
just to mention, because we're going before the exam, we're going to do
a new one, different one,
different one, and we're going to answer it so that the student knew how it is going to be
now
answered.
to be familiar with the form of the page.
To make them familiar with the way of the exam paper.
So with the first text, we have alternatives or choices. They have to choose the correct answer, and the next one is to choose the two of the underlined words in the text to suit their definitions. We have definitions.
Need to write only the answer.
The answer. They have to pay attention to the keywords. Again, we have these are definitions with keywords.
If we do just number 4, people who live in particular place.
Community.
Yes. So they write community next to number 4.
So number 4, community.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The second text, Ms. Rula.
The second text, we have the questions about it. We have three statements, and the students have to decide whether these statements are true or false.
True or false.
So they have to write T for true and F for false.
Or tick or X. Anything that shows that this is true and this is false
is accepted. But it must be clear.
Have to correct.
Some students write both signs in one sign.
Yeah, it needs to be clear, yes.
Yes. The second question, it's comprehension question. They have to answer the questions. They have to find the answer from the text.
In the text, yes.
Yes.
Second page, Ms. Samaher, please. We start with Ms. Zuka now, the second page.
Yes, here in this exercise, they have to choose the correct answer. It depends on grammar.
It is functional.
Yes, it's functional.
It can be a pronoun, relative pronoun, verb to be. like
Yeah.
this.
Okay.
We've discussed most of the ones
Yes, we
mentioned here.
have
Yeah.
discussed them.
So here the
They are
accident.
very clear.
We have which that refers to things, and we have whose, which refers to position
Property.
happened.
Yes.
It's clear that it is going to be which. We have too much and too many.
Noise,
Yes.
uncountable, so.
Countable and uncountable nouns.
Yeah.
And
There
again,
is-
like you've said, is singular, so it denotes the much.
Yes. And dear students, we're going to explain this in details before the exam, but now we want you just to have a look at the exam paper. Miss Sana, exercise D. It is
Okay,
3
so-
choices.
Yes, we have multiple choices. It's something going to do with functional.
It can be, yes, functional,
Yes, functional.
prepositions, pronouns, question
relative,
words.
relative pronouns, yes. We have 4 questions in letter D. Letter E, we have a question of missing words.
Missing words.
Yes, missing words. These words are also functional.
Functional, yes.
3 questions. The last one, letter F, here matching.
Matching.
Yes, matching.
We have 2 groups,
Yes.
1 extra, and the student is going to match between the column 1 and
Yes.
the column
And
B. Miss Aula, second half of the second page.
The first one in the second half is about tenses. And in tenses, in their question, it's going to be choices. So they have to
Yeah, the
choose.
student needs to choose between this
Between
or
two
that,
choice.
the correct one.
Exactly. They are 5 tenses. And the last, not the last one, number H is going to be questions, and the following one is answer. So it's a dialogue. It's a dialogue, and they
the
need
first one
to.
question, the next one.
Students
is
have
answer.
to read the sentence and decide which WH word or which question word is suitable for the question. To write it and to pay attention to the tense.
And they have to put in mind that it's a dialogue, so they need to understand the whole question together,
Yes,
not
yes,
only
yes.
the sentences.
Yes.
They need to make
Not
questions
one by
exactly.
one, but as a conversation.
Exactly.
And then we come to the composition.
Yes, it's
They have
optional.
2 compositions, but they don't need to write 2 compositions.
one.
They need
Only
to
one of
choose
them.
only one of them. At the end of this session, dear students, let me thank my colleagues in the studio, Ms. Ula Al-Mu'i,
Thank you so much.
Supervisor of English, Tartus Directorate, Ms. Rula Bitar, English teacher, Latakia Directorate, Zuka Naif, English language teacher, Latakia Directorate, Ms. Sana Ismail,
Thank you.
English language teacher, Damascus Countryside Directorate, and big thanks to our directors in the studio, Ms. Samahir Dayoub and Ms. Ghina Hayek, and thanks to the director of the platform, Mr. Mahmoud Hamid. Also, big thank to our boss in the center, Dr. Darim Tabba, and mostly big thanks to our brave minister, Mr. Imad Al-Azab, and regards from me, Senior Supervisor and Coordinator of the English Language Curriculum, Abdul Majid Ogurli. Until the next time, hope you be safe and sound. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.